So maybe you don't want a new controller. Maybe you want to build your own controller. Then you should consider PCBWay. They are an expert website where you can order custom PCBs. You can get the plastic moldings done for your projects, all on their website. They also do CNC milling. And on top of that, they have a projects page where people share their projects. There are Game Boy Advance mods. There are custom gaming consoles that you can literally just go there and copy what those guys are doing and make your own stuff. So go check out PCBWay, a lovely website where you can order everything and make it to spec and have it delivered to your doorstep. Thank you so much to PCBWay for sponsoring today's video. So this is my first time reviewing the 8BitDo 2C, and I'm glad it's with this beautiful Wukong collab. Let's quickly jump into the design. You don't need to be a Wukong fan to appreciate how this thing looks. I recently received the prettier 8BitDo collab, and that was really nice, and this is right up there, possibly even prettier. Although fairly shallow cosmetic branding with printing and that kind of thing, 8BitDo take a lot of care in doing these collabs and making sure they are very special in their own right. The orange has specifically been chosen. This is not the same orange as my prettier ones. They've specifically chosen this orange for the Wukong look and feel. This black on black emblem really does look fantastic. There's even a little bit of red around the menu button here. These orange flares on the side are subtle. I do worry because they don't seem to be embossed into the plastic, so I do worry that they're going to come off over time, but really pretty. And then it's only the front that is transparent where you can see the inner working slightly. You can't see anything over here, so they seem to have masked that off, but there is a bit of a transparent look on the front, but the back is a solid black. The function buttons are more flush than my other 8BitDo controllers, like for instance my Ultimate controller. These buttons are more protrude a little bit more. What's interesting is that this is an Android and PC controller with Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz, but they've got the plus and minus like a switch, so you would think it's switch compatible, but it isn't. I want to jump right in and talk about the main reason you would want to buy this, like the sort of unique selling point of this particular controller. And essentially, it's an 8BitDo controller that connects to both Android and Windows via 2.4 gigahertz dongle or Bluetooth. Those dual connections are important, and it just looks damn beautiful. It's an 8BitDo controller, which is tried and trusted and one of my favorite brands, and the fact that it's really pretty, and then the fact that it's got 2.4 gigahertz and Bluetooth on the same controller. For example, 8BitDo are a bit sticky about segmenting their controllers. So this one is just a 2.4 gigahertz controller. It's a little bit heavier and comes with a dock. But then my prettier one is just a Bluetooth controller and is compatible with the switch. This is Bluetooth and 2.4 gigahertz, but then is only Android and Windows. They segment their controllers, but they are worth it. And it's worth just doing a little bit of research and finding out which one is for you. What's in the box? It comes with one of their really nice cables. I haven't opened it because I've gotten many of these cables by now, and they are very nice. So it's a branded cable, and it is a nice silicon floppy rubber. I do tend to use these around the house because I like them. And this you would use, this is a data cable, so this is you can use for multiple things, and this would be to use this as a wired controller. It's not very long. I'll put the length on the screen. And then it comes with, I'm going to say all my dongles, but I only have one. I've only seen this in the original, this was inspired by Minecraft. I've only seen this in the brown and the white. I haven't seen a black one before, so this one is a black dongle, and it's got that Minecraft-inspired look. And this is, you very seldom will have issues with this. You just plug it in and connect via 2.4 gigahertz. What I'm going to do for the test is use this USB-C adapter, plug it into the Steam Deck, and we'll use that for testing a little bit later. This is very cumbersome, but this would go into your dock. So if you've got a dock for your Steam Deck or whatever thing you're using, that would go into the dock. And then there's a lot of things you can talk about. You can talk about the polling rates, that it's got 1,000 hertz polling rates. It's got a high polling rate in here, which is great. You can talk about that sort of thing. So when it's wired and 2.4 gigahertz, the polling rate is really high. The thing is, I think it's the Xbox controller that's only 160 hertz. I'm not really going to talk about that sort of stuff ad nauseum here, because you will get good fast refresh rates and a good response time on this on 2.4 gigahertz and wired. But I think the most important thing, unless the controller is really rubbish, is how it feels. And so what I did notice is that this is 219 grams, 220 grams, and my ultimate controller with back paddles is 238 grams. And while in my review of a cheaper controller, I said it is nice for long playtimes to have a light controller. A little bit of heft to a controller does feel nice in your hands because it just weighs into your hands. This is still my favorite controller. This isn't too heavy or too light. It is a very nice weight. 8BitDo controllers use very nice plastic, a lot like Retro Pockets, where they've got this lovely stippled plastic on the back here for grip. The plastic in general is a nice textured plastic. And then just the comfort of it, it sits in your hands really nicely. I put the Xbox One controller here just to compare. This is like almost like a bit phallic, but bit of a sausage in your hand here. But that sits nicely and it is comfortable. But there's just something about the way that 8BitDo decided to go their own way and not have such a flared body to it. Let's quickly just analyze that. It's got the same sort of depth. This just flares more and it's got more, like I say, a bit of a sausage in your hand, whereas this kind of just sits in this part of your hand and just sits in there. We're splitting hairs at this point, but it really does feel nice, and these are my favorite ergonomics so far that I've tested. And then also in terms of feel, we've got these lovely floppy analog sticks, got these sort of glistening action buttons that are a little bit more raised than an Xbox controller, which gives you a slightly more retro feel. These are membrane buttons, same as the D-pad. Membrane D-pad feels very retro because they've got retro styling in their blood. This is slightly more clicky than my ultimate controller. So I think they've gone where I think it's still a membrane D-pad, but it's got a slight clickiness. So it's the perfect balance between this and your Game Boy controller. This is a nice balance between the two. Yeah, that's actually excellent. And then triggers, I just quickly want to point this out. Everything I mention in this video is going to be in the links below. If you want to support my channel with those affiliate links, I'd appreciate that. This is the Gully kit. It's got some interesting specs with the joysticks. This is probably one of the nicest feeling controllers I own, but it's not my favorite, probably because of the look. I prefer the ergonomics of these Ultimate controllers. They've gone for the more sort of Xbox style sausage in your hand ergonomics. But the point of my story here is that their triggers are probably some of the best triggers I've used on a controller. It's got a very soft click to the shoulder buttons and the triggers of lovely tension to them. This is a lot softer, and I do a little bit of tension in my triggers. It's, for racing games, for Sonic the Hedgehog racing, or Forza Horizon, which is what I'm playing. I like a little bit of tension in that trigger. Even for shooting in Wolfenstein, this just feels a little bit too floppy for my liking. We'll talk about these extra funny buttons they've made. These are quite clicky. Some people will like that because the whole idea behind this is fast response with very clicky buttons for competitive gaming, and that might feel better because you know you're getting a good click. Okay, so let's quickly jump into a trigger test. Let's get this connected. I'm going to let everyone drive off. What I want to test is just that gradual acceleration. So there's quite a big dead zone there, so there's no movement. I've pushed in quite a bit, and there we go. Now we're getting some gradual movement. More. There we're at full throttle. So that's a nice, there's a little bit of a dead zone in the beginning, and then let's check the analog stick. Also a bit of a dead zone in the center, which is what you want. You want a bit of a dead zone so that you're not getting this very snappy experience. All right, let's just do some gradual turning here. There you go. So I feel like I'm getting some really good response here. It's nice and subtle. It's got a smooth flow from beginning to end. Same with the joysticks. Feels good to me. All right, now I'm going to use the modern version of Contra. I was playing this on my TV earlier, and this is just such a cool game. I've just got the demo at the moment, but I would highly recommend it. So here what we're doing is we're doing the modern Contra test. This D-pad, let's just get the D-pad in there, just wiggling there, and the character's not. Okay, we're getting diagonal. That's pretty normal, I think. Yeah, he's not moving. That's what you want. You want him to stay on the ground. That's basically what I'm trying to show you. And then overall, this D-pad's just really nice to use. It's a great balance between a rubber membrane like your older day controllers. It's a lovely balance between that and, say, the Xbox controller with its clicky D-pad. And then also to mention, now that I'm using it and I'm feeling the rumble motor, it's got a decent rumble motor. That cheaper controller that I tested a while ago, the rumble motor was pretty atrocious and it was really harsh, and then when you turned it down it felt weird. They don't have settings for the rumble motor on this, it just does what it does. There is no app for the 2C controller, and it almost seems like 8BitDo are doing away with the whole app thing, so everything works within the controller. In terms of battery, this has a 500 milliamp hour battery. The original 2C has a 480 milliamp hour battery. That's what this says on the body here. 500 milliamp hours is a little bit lower than some of the other controllers I have here in the studio. I used this for about 2 hours playing Contra and playing Wolfenstein, and I didn't die. I haven't charged it not even now when I'm doing the video. So 500 milliamps is fine unless you're a really hardcore gamer playing all day, then this is not going to last you. I don't know any controller that will do that. Now let's get to these buttons. I wasn't too sure about this, but after Googling a little bit about why people would want it here, the one thing I thought of personally, because I've watched a YouTube video of someone who had mobility issues. I can't remember, but I think he had one hand and then I think he used his chin and his mouth to play games. And so it was quite hard for him to play. And I seem to remember him using the shoulder buttons a lot. I think even his hand had limited motion. Controllers with a cluster of buttons could be useful for mobility issues. The other thing that I found online, what guys were saying is, if you're into competitive gaming and you need a fast response, with 1000 hertz response rates and a button being super clicky and right here, it allows you for like very fast response rate. Let's say, for instance, you've got a trigger on something and the game is defaulted to L3 or R3 and it's a bit of a pain to use, then you could just map it to here. Let's say, for instance, like on Wolfenstein, swapping with the blade is R3. I'm going to press R4. I'm going to press R3. This is the mapping button. I'm going to press it. You're going to see the button's going to be flashing and let go. And now this is mapped to whatever this is. You just map it to any existing button to make life a little bit easier for yourself. Okay, so in terms of the connectivity, it's pretty straightforward. You've got your 2.4 gigahertz there, the switch. So you switch it to here, it's plugged in, it's going to be on 2.4 gigahertz. Then if you want to switch to Bluetooth, you switch it over to Bluetooth on that little switch there. And then there's a pairing button at the top. And all you do is you press the pairing button. Let's just see what the lights do. Quite hard to press, actually. Okay, so it flashes there. Now I'm going to go to my Bluetooth, add a device. Let's see, here we go. Do Ultimate 2C wireless. There we go. Busy pairing. There we go. It says my battery's halfway. And why you wouldn't want Bluetooth? A lot of people say that the response rate on Bluetooth is bad. It depends on the Bluetooth, often on your device rather than on the controller. The whole concept of response rates is like highly inflated. So there you go. Bluetooth is connected. This is actually Linux. It's Android and Windows. I don't want to give you false hope. I think they're specifically saying it's not going to work with a Switch, Nintendo Switch. I unfortunately don't have that to test here. It's Bluetooth is Bluetooth, so I don't know. But I wouldn't order this hoping for that. Windows and Android. Okay, turbo mode. So here we are in Contra, and I want, so for instance, if you just want the button, if you've got a game where you're busy going, trying to shoot the whole time, you press and hold the button, and you press star, and then it'll be turbo mode. This is already a turbo mode, so that's fine. Now we're just going to disable that. Now we're going to enable auto turbo modes. We press and hold, press twice. Now we have to press the button to stop it from shooting, which is actually what you want in Contra. So that's great. And then just to disable it, we press and hold the button that we have mapped and double click again. Now it's disabled. Moving on to if there are any deal breakers with this controller, it's hard to fault 8BitDo. They are really good and started out as an underdog, and now they probably are a lot of people's favorites. There's a lot to like about them. There's probably some things people wouldn't like. Now, this used to be a full-on membrane D-pad, now it's somewhere in between. I just don't think there's much to dislike here. These buttons, some people are going to think these buttons are weird, like why are they here? Why don't we just have back paddles? I never use back paddles because I don't feel like it's a natural feeling to me. This is probably something I'm going to use. I just thought of a use case for Wolfenstein where instead of pressing down R3, I can just press this to swipe a blade. Whether you are a Wukong fan or not, this is an excellent controller, and while it hasn't dethroned my ultimate controller, my dockable ultimate controller, this is a highly practical controller that just happens to look stunning in a Wukong dressing.